up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mask Off Therapy. We have Mr. Mac in the house.
That's right, baby.
Fucking trail mix back there.
Beats, baby.
And our very special guest, Char Justice from Eugene. I think people get mad when I introduce them and I start naming off all this bullshit because it leaves them with nothing to introduce themselves.
They get the deer in the headlights.
You're like,
well, wait, that's me?
You just took all my stuff.
You took my thunder.
What am I going to say? So I'm going to let you introduce yourself this time.
Okay.
Tell the people who you are, where you're from, what you're about.
All right. Well, thanks for having me first.
Yes.
My name is Charleen Justice. I live in Eugene. I work for the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, otherwise known as MAPS.
Psychedelic Studies. So, real quick, let me stop you.
Mm-hmm.
That means we're going to be talking about mushrooms and microdosing. Fucking pay attention.
We don't actually study mushrooms or microdosing.
MDMA.
We study MDMA for PTSD, but I do have knowledge in mushrooms and microdosing.
MDMA.
So we will be going into that. I also am in the guide training program for the Enneagram Prison Project. I have a bachelor's degree in planning, public policy, and management that I got on scholarship, and I'm starting a master's degree in psychology in the fall, also on scholarship for focusing on translational neuroscience, program design, trauma, and resilience.
That's a whole lot of information to take in.
Very.
You need to rewind it and go back through it and do that.
So what school are you going to?
U of O, double duck.
Damn. Big time shit.
That is.
We will be getting into all that with like the prison project. I definitely want to talk about that. But let's kind of start at the beginning. And you grew up in Klamath, right?
I did, born and raised, Klamath Tribe's land.
Weesh.
I think we're all from Klamath. Everybody thinks that I still fucking live there for some reason, but
And people think I don't live there. What the fuck?
I do not live there. So yeah, tell us a little bit about growing up in Klamath.
I think, a similar experience to a lot of people, below the poverty line, a lot of unhealthy habits in the environment, a lot of drug use, violence, just people trying to survive and not really having the skills, awareness, or knowledge on what to do. Nobody gets a handbook to life.
Right.
And so it was okay, but, a lot of trauma.
You fell into addiction at some point, didn't you?
Yeah, yes. Commonly, if you don't have coping skills or mechanisms or a network, you are searching for connection, and drugs can often provide that.
Right.
And so, yeah, I had an unhealthy relationship with several drugs and alcohol for quite some time.
What was your drug of choice?
It depends.
On the night. It depends on the night.
Yeah.
I did a lot of drugs. I sold a lot of drugs.
What age do you think you started using drugs?
I didn't start using until I was 15, which was like really late in my friend group. Yeah.
Late?
Yeah, I was like one of the last ones to do it and to get involved, And then I haven't drank alcohol for almost 5 years now. And I can't say that I'm drug free because I definitely microdose. I have a medical condition that I microdose for.
What's that?
It's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. And it's a depressive disorder, and basically my body produces hormones that my brain has an abnormal reaction to. And 30% of the people who have it attempt to or successfully do commit suicide, so it's very challenging to live with.
So how the fuck did you find out you had that?
I actually didn't find out until like 2017. So I think in 2016, my boyfriend was like, yo, are you bipolar?
You
or
crazy
like,
girl.
What the fuck? I was like, I told you I was crazy. And he was like, no, you're like, something goes on before your period. Like, you're a different person.
That's
you
what
don't
I
want
was
to get
gonna
out
ask
of
you. Is that a
bed.
woman thing? 'Cause
Yeah.
I heard you say menstrual.
Yep.
There's a lot of big words in there. I'm just trying to figure out.
He's like, menstrual, wait,
Yeah.
let's veer away from that.
That's woman, right?
So premenstrual is before your period. Dysphoric is the opposite of euphoric. So euphoria is super happy, very good, and dysphoria is everything's bad. You don't want to be alive. Like, it's just a negative lens.
Just depression?
Filtered, hardcore. And then the disorder, obviously. But yeah, he's the one who recognized it. And I went to my doctor, and they were like, well, you have PTSD, you have anxiety, you have a ton of unresolved trauma, and, that's PMS, forget about it. And so I was trying to kind of work through having PTSD and anxiety and the struggles of all that, and stopping drinking. Mm-hmm. And I was actually when I was a kid, my dad had a bedroom that we put floor-to-ceiling bookshelves in for all of his books. And I used to go in there and just grab a random book and open to a page and see what it said. It was like one of my favorite things to do. And I still do that as an adult. And I was working in the women's center at at Lane Community College. And I saw a book, and I opened it. I was dusting the books and organizing them. And I opened it up, and it was everything that I was living with. It was a list of symptoms.
That's crazy.
And I started crying, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I have.
You got a book?
And and so, I checked out that book, and I went home, and I started looking it up, and it's not very well known in the U.S. It's way more known in the U.K. Mm-hmm. And the only way to find out if you have it is to track your symptoms for 2 months. And you can see if it happens within a certain time frame.
Is there blood work involved?
No.
No blood work?
No.
Why do you think that it's predominantly in the UK and not here in the US?
They have more of the groups that are focusing on it there. Like, there's more people who have been affected by it who found out about it. And so they made, like, nonprofits and awareness groups. It's starting to spread here, but... yeah, I got to see a specialist. By the time I got in, I already had my 2 months of data. Mm-hmm. And he was like, wow, this is one of the worst cases I've ever seen. He gave me Zoloft. What's up?
I was just saying, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild. So yeah, he gave me Zoloft, which is the frontline treatment, antidepressant, which is what they also give for PTSD. And I took it, but it made me numb, which was great because I didn't have this constant flux of sadness and wanting to not be alive. But it stopped working after a couple of months. And I was in a Facebook support group, actually. And I saw an article that said microdosing psilocybin may keep PMDD at bay. Mm. And
what was it?
Microdosing psilocybin.
No, the name of the disorder.
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Premenstrual what?
Dysphoric.
Dysphoric disorder.
Yeah, PMDD. Okay. So, but I'd done a lot of mushrooms for a long time, and I was like, I don't know about that. I don't. And so I started looking into it and doing a lot of reading. And this is before I started working at MAPS. Yeah. I was volunteering for MAPS at the time. I was a chapter leader for Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which is an international student group working on drug policy reform. Shout out SXDP. I love them. They're really great. But yeah, so I was like, looked into it, and when you eat psilocybin or magic mushrooms, it breaks down in the body into psilocin, and then that is structurally similar to serotonin. And so it can engage with the receptors in your brain in a similar manner. And so once I started looking at it and reading the papers and sort of reading other people's experiences, I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And my boyfriend's like, hold on. You're going to stop taking your meds that this specialist prescribed you, and you're going to start eating magic mushrooms?
He's like, you're crazy, and then you're going to start taking mushrooms on top of it.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
So the same specialist didn't prescribe you the mushrooms? How did you get the mushrooms?
Whoa.
I'm resourceful, Jeff.
Okay, I was just wondering if there's like a doctor or something.
No, you
involved
can't.
with
No,
this.
we did recently pass legislation in Oregon, but it's currently not legal. But I will say we live in Oregon, and mushrooms grow here.
It's currently not legal? I thought it was legal.
They have 2 years to implement it, so it's technically like in that phase. But you can't go right now and get mushrooms from a doctor.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought the last time we talked about this, you were able to get prescribed
They passed it, but it's not implemented yet because they have 2 years to
They're
implement
working on it, right? So
yeah.
I get it.
Yes.
I did not.
It's in clinical studies, maybe? Is that what you would call that? Or
I mean,
that,
no,
would
just
you-
kind of some underground experimentation.
So since we're kind of talking off the off the books, I guess, off the legal side of things, and we are talking about some serious shit. Like, mushrooms are serious shit to me. Like, you have to be really careful with how much you take. Me and Mike almost killed each other on mushrooms on a bad trip, like literally weapons in hand, death. And it was very scary.
Fucking just swords and shit. Fucking.
Shotgun and a butcher knife. So yeah.
Well, I
They
hate
can
to
be
have
very
the butcher knife in
dangerous,
that
yeah.
battle.
Let's clarify what microdosing means, like in an amount.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, I do want to say you're 100% correct. Anything can be dangerous. The way my boss describes these drugs are as tools, and he's like, just like a knife, you can use it, in a good way, or you can use it in a bad way.
Agreed.
And
100%.
definitely set and setting is super important. Dosage is super important. Mindset, intention. There's so much that goes into it. And microdosing specifically is a very small amount. So a small amount. And I started using the information and the regimen from microdosingpsychedelics.com.
There you go.
So
look that up if you're interested in this. Don't just fucking go out, get yourself a bag, and
Eat a couple
try and
caps.
guess how much to take, because it is very dangerous.
The biggest thing is that a lot of people don't expect when they're using drugs recreationally it can be LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, a variety of things. Is they think, oh, I'm gonna have this party drug, this good experience, and what happens is they have trauma that they have repressed and that they have been shoving down and not dealing with. And when you're in these altered states, those things can come to the surface because they need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the mind state or you don't have the support to process these things, it can actually make them much worse. So it's very important.
So can you say what that website is again?
Yes, it's microdosingpsychedelics.com.
And we'll put a link up to that in the show for you guys.
And then Paul Stamets actually has, I think it's called the Stamets Stack. I haven't looked into it. I should, because I was recently helping them contributing, I would say, just a minor contribution to some work that they're actually doing with PMDD and trying to study it for microdosing for PMDD.
My understanding is like microdosing is, so you're not actually getting high when you microdose, right? You're like, it's more of like on a chemical change level in your body and like your levels or whatever, instead of like you're taking a microdose and you're like getting high off it and visuals and shit. It's not like that, right?
So if you are having visuals, you've taken too much.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I started out with 0.1. I've had some really not great mushroom experiences in my life, and I was very nervous about taking it. I mean, I know I have a lot of childhood trauma that I haven't dealt with. Like, I have done a lot of work, I have done a lot of therapy, I'm in these groups, but I still have a lot that I haven't addressed. Right. And I know that, there's a possibility of that stuff coming up, and so I was super scared. So I just took 0.1.
Yeah, tell us about your first experience. You stopped taking your antidepressants.
I stopped taking my antidepressants.
Saying, I'm gonna fucking try this.
Yeah, I tapered off of them because you have to do that.
Very important information.
And then, I started with 0.1, and then, so the way that he has it is you can start with 0.1 or 0.2, and then you take it on one day, then you take 2 days off. On the third day you take it, then you take 3 days off. So it's basically 2 days out of the week.
Okay.
And so I started doing that, and we just kind of waited, and nothing was happening. Like, I wasn't having my normal symptoms, and we were like, okay, it's a fluke because we're focusing on it, Mm-hmm. And then the next time when it came around, I kept doing it, and I mean, it changed my life. I will never, I have the biggest fear of not having them, and maybe 6 months ago, I thought, okay, I've been doing this for 3 years, and maybe I'm better now. And so I tried to not do it. It was a horrible idea. It was bad.
So did it come on worse after that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's hardcore, and it's weird because it's like this. I didn't notice it before, but it's just sort of like this negative voice that comes in. I think of it now as like your grimy ass friend who you've known forever who just like shows up and like has all the worst ideas.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I'll wake up in the morning. Usually if I wake up, I hear the birds. I'm like, oh yeah, the birds, it's a beautiful day. And like when PMDD's here, I'm like, those fucking birds. You know, but.
Yeah.
So when you had quit taking it, how long did it take you back to get your levels kind of under control to where you started feeling back better?
The awesome thing about it is like, okay, so I dose at night because like what you said,
Yeah.
if you don't have your dose down, and sometimes you get a different kind of mushroom, you don't know. It's all trial and error. It's all experimentation. So you have to be mentally prepared. And like, I didn't have visuals off it or anything because it is such a small amount. But I'll be like, you know, I was taking it in the day and I'm like in class and then I'm like, why do I feel like I ate mushrooms? It's like, oh, because I did.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of like fuzzy feeling inside. Yeah. And so I started taking it before I went to sleep. And that's my go-to now. I sleep, you know, I already have crazy dreams from PTSD.
I was going to say, probably have some better dreams.
Yeah. And and then I wake up and I feel good. And it's like almost, you know, you can notice it the next day.
And you were saying earlier about like melatonin, so kind of you're using it like a supplement as melatonin to sleep?
So I do kind of think that it helps with my quality of sleep, honestly, but that wasn't my intention for it. But yeah, it's a serotonin supplement.
Serotonin.
Yes, a big difference.
Yeah, get that under control, Catrell.
Those big words throw me
my
off too.
microdose is a little bit off.
You ever tried it?
Yeah.
Microdosing? Yeah?
Or melatonin.
Or just full on.
Oh, full on frying's like a no-go.
I've tried microdosing before.
You like it?
Yeah. It calms me, you know.
Have you done it like on a regular basis? Or just
Probably a couple weeks straight.
Yeah?
And you can see a difference.
I was on microdosing every day for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What about you?
Never microdosed.
Me neither.
I just full on
Go
get
for the
crazy
gold.
with it, yeah. But I've never had a bad trip
Me neither.
on anything I've ever
Lucky.
taken.
I think that my bad trip was a lot to do with not knowing what to expect. And Mike, like, had been doing it for years and was like, fucking, I thought he poisoned me. And I fucking...
You're like, son of a bitch.
I did. I thought he poisoned me and I fucking was going to kill him for it. And it turned bad real quick. Like, I felt like weird shit going through my body. I was smoking cigarettes and I'm like thinking they're poison and shit. And he thought it was funny and that made it worse. So,
Like you just make it funny, yeah.
This is actually really important because a common occurrence that happens when people take psychedelics is they have what's called an ego death. And they actually think they're dying.
Yeah.
It's super
So that's
common.
crazy that because my woman one time she took some mushrooms or I can't remember if she was at a party or maybe it was acid, I can't remember what it was, but someone gave her something without her knowing whatever and she came over and then I thought she went to sleep and I fucking was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go to sleep too or whatever. But little did I know, she's fucking sitting there and she said she kept dying over and over all night long and she was freaking out and she didn't know what to do and I'm fucking over here sleeping and shit, you know? And she's like thinking she's all alone, she's dying over and over like reoccurring and I'm just like, cool, peace out, you know? And I was like, and it's crazy that someone would have, like I wouldn't know what to do because the first time I ever took acid or something, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
It's super
I was like, I'm going to
common.
die if I take this. So I was like, took just I think a half a tab or something. And then I was like, cool. I was like, we'll see how this goes, you know? Then I started feeling pretty good. And I was like, well, fuck it, I'll take another one. And then I was like, fuck it, you know what? I'll just take another tab. And then fucking, you know, then an hour later, 2 hours later, I'm sitting here and I think I'm a teddy bear. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I'm fucking frying hard. I'm like, everybody's like, you got to drink milk. Milk will make it go away.
my
So
Lord.
here I am walking around with a gallon of fucking milk, drinking this gallon of milk. And I'm like all bloated from it, which makes me think I'm even more of like a teddy bear. So I'm like sitting here like this. And I'm like, got a gallon of milk. And I'm like, bro. And he's like, let's go in the bathroom. And I'm like,
You know you're
let's.
lactose intolerant.
Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm shitting everywhere. And no.
Everybody in their fucking home remedies to like get rid
I
of
know,
it.
right?
Yeah. So
But really, it was just fun just letting it play out, and I had a pretty good time. But
I feel like you touched on a couple of really good things there really quick, so I didn't
Yeah.
want to cut you off. But definitely, there's like a huge rookie mistake is doing something and then not feeling it soon
Yeah.
enough and doing more.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I always say, wait like an hour and a half and see
Yeah.
where you are, because people get impatient and always,
Especially with something that's got to take a little bit of time to kick in. It's not like if you do a line or something, you're like, whoa, shit, you know what I mean? Or you're drinking a beer and you're starting to feel the effects immediately. Something like that takes a minute to kick in, and like you're saying, people, they go crazy with it.
Yeah.
I was one of those people.
And then that ego death. So basically, your consciousness kind of starts to leave your body, and so like you separate from the I, from your identity, and you're kind of like going into like the spiritual network of sorts. And so when that is happening, especially if you don't have any awareness of like what an ego versus a self is, or identity, or any of that, you literally think you're dying. Like people go to the ER every day because of it.
That's what I
wild.
thought. Do you think that, because I've done acid too, and that was like completely different experience than mushrooms for me. Completely different. It was a lot cleaner. I didn't have the so I've done mushrooms twice. Both times I like literally felt poison rushing through my body. I didn't feel like that with acid. I felt
Acid
like
made me feel really fucked up, and someone told me it's because it had strychnine in it or something, because it fucked with my back. It made me want to crack my back the whole time afterwards. And like the next day, I'm like, oh, like feeling all shitty and weird. But mushrooms, I don't know. I've always felt pretty good on mushrooms.
Really?
I think it just depends on the
person,
person,
yeah.
and also,
Mental
on
state.
what kind of mushrooms. LSD is obviously man-made, and so it can be, there's so many different outcomes, and
So many variables.
Yeah.
so many.
So don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Unless you know what you're
Unless
doing.
you,
Unless you have your microdosing.
I mean, unless you know what you're doing, you can do drugs.
Well, I mean, drugs in a clinical
we're sitting
setting.
on bad vibes right now.
Don't do drugs.
Yeah.
Especially lots of mushrooms, because fucking they will kill you.
They are actually one of the least toxic, but you can have
not overdose status. I mean, like, somebody will shoot you in the face because you're fucking being weird.
Kind of end in a different way.
Yeah.
It's always good to have somebody there who knows what's happening.
Yeah.
So, like in our
That's another thing I was going to bring up real quick is, like, not knowing what to expect kind of freaks people out, or like knowing how long it's going to last and all that shit.
and that's kind of another,
kinda
like,
weird.
the buy the ticket, take the ride thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're signing up for this, if you're going to do it, just accept it and just let it be what it is. And you're not going to want to, if you set expectations for something and it doesn't fulfill those expectations, you're going to have not a very good experience most of the
Yeah. Oh,
time.
yeah.
So here's a quick example. My daughter, she really wanted, well, she's my stepdaughter, but she really wanted,
They had kids.
I've been with her dad for 6.5 years, so, but she really wanted this one Hawaiian place for dinner, and on her birthday, and so I go to take her there, and it was closed, and so I'm like, oh, well, they got this other Hawaiian place, we can go get that. And she got it, and she's like, it's not very good, I don't like it. She's like all pissy, And then a couple months later, we tried it again, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is actually better than the other place. I just wanted the other place so bad, I didn't realize how good this was. And so really just kind of letting go of your expectations and trusting that you're going to have the experience that you need to have, and having the support there. So like with our MDMA for PTSD trials, we have somebody two therapists sit with the person, but we trust the inner guidance, and we trust that there's an inner healing within each person, that we don't have somebody guiding them, like people say, oh, I need to go on a guided trip. We don't do guided situations. We let them lead with their own inner knowledge. And so then they have therapists there if they want to talk. So they lay in a bed, they have eye shades, they have music, they take the MDMA, they've done integration. So the biggest part about this whole thing is you can have your experience, but if you're not integrating it, if you're not talking about what came up, if you're not working through the things that came up, you are stymieing yourself. You're really we do MDMA assisted therapy. So the therapy is what is doing the job.
Yeah.
The MDMA helps it.
Yeah, it will help you open you up too, and like feel comfortable. I hate to use this as an example, but it's similar to alcohol. Like people just, they open up and shit.
Feel more social. So with MDMA specifically, it decreases activity in the amygdala, so the fight or flight center. and it increases activity in the prefrontal
Dang,
cortex.
that's what I need.
I love ecstasy. Like I loved it so much. It's what got me into my opiate addiction. Because I fell in love with it. I had a good experience with it, but it became really hard to get. So I had to get something else to replace it. And then I fell into opiates. But yeah, MDMA has always been like a huge therapeutic.
What is MDMA?
So I can't pronounce that. It's like methyl I know I should know how to say it, but it's like this long. It is produced in a lab, and it was actually created by Merck, I think, in 1912. And they were trying to make something, and then it didn't really work out for them. And then I have the whole history on my computer.
Yeah.
I should have reviewed it, but
And it's closed.
I could pull it up. But so they revisited it, and then they actually started using it for therapy and couples therapy.
Yeah, therapy.
Oh.
It was huge.
Yeah, in
dang.
the 50s.
I need some couples
It
therapy.
was,
It's so
Babe.
good.
wasn't it legal for a long time?
Yes, it was. It definitely was.
And then,
And then I think it was 84. Let me.
Oh, you said it was legal?
it
it
was
was,
legal for a long
yeah,
time.
for a
And they
really
used
long
it-
time.
Dope used to be legal too at a point,
Yeah,
right?
but this
Kinda?
is like,
Was it?
That's why my boss actually
s-
started MAPS, was to try to get. So yeah, in 1912, it was first synthesized and patented by the pharmaceutical company Merck, and it was an unimportant precursor to a new synthesis that they were making for clotting agents. And then in 1927, the first preclinical pharmacological test with MDMA by Merck took place, but they didn't really find anything. Then in 53 and 54, the United States Army
yeah. I
used
knew it was
animal
in the
models to
military.
investigate the toxicity and behavioral effects of MDMA and 7 other related compounds. But those results remain classified until 73. And then in 59, they were doing some more animal testing, but nothing. And then in the 70s, Shasha Shulgin, American chemist, resynthesized MDMA and experimented with the drug himself. And then in 1970, Leo Zeff, the secret chief. So he was actually doing all of this underground psychotherapy. But, well, I guess it would be above ground. But he didn't want to be known. Like, we printed a book on him. It was called The Secret Chief. And then after he passed, we got the permission to do The Secret Chief Revealed, where we said who he was. But he did, 500,000 doses of MDMA in therapeutic settings.
Wow.
So he was
It
a therapist.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It wasn't until people started like cutting it with other shit that it became a fucking huge problem. And like they cut it and press it with meth. They cut it and press it with all kinds of different shit.
Yeah.
You never really know what
Stomping
you're
on
gonna
it.
get. But yeah, MDMA in its pure form is a completely different story.
Yeah, so we have pharmaceutical grade MDMA produced under good manufacturing practices. It was very expensive.
Yeah.
And we had to have it on lock and key with cameras inside of another locked room and, all these regulations, but it's the good. I haven't done it. We don't get access. But, our results, I don't know if you want to talk about those right now or if you want to talk about them later, but they are...
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So we are in phase 3 studies right now. So a lot of people didn't know what phase 3 studies meant, but now with the vaccine rollout, there's like a little bit more awareness of phase 3. So when you're doing a trial for a new drug with the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, you have to go through a series of trials, and the last one is the phase 3, which is what we're in. So my boss has been doing this for 35 years, and we're a nonprofit pharmaceutical drug company focused on drug policy reform, so ending the war on drugs. And our first of 2, so you have to do 2, and our first one we finished, and then we had the 2-month follow-up, which is required for the data, and then they unblind it so we can see. So we have our placebo is therapy on its own. So what happens is you get screened, you go in, you have 3 therapy sessions.
Okay.
Those are preparation sessions. Then you have the drug session, which is you take the drug there. Now, if you get the placebo, then you get a sugar pill or something.
Yeah.
You're not getting it, but you're still doing the therapy. You
Gotcha.
could be in there with the therapist for 8 hours. After that, you have 3 more integration sessions, then a drug, 3 integration, then a drug, then the last 3 integration. So you have a total of 12 therapy sessions with 3 drug sessions total over 3.5 months. So the people who just did our therapy protocol, which we have an amazing therapy team, they're just amazing. And so they created this whole thing. If you just did the therapy, no drug, 30% no longer qualified for PTSD at the 2-month follow-up. So the average person taking our, in our clinical trials, taking this protocol, has a PTSD for an average, chronic severe PTSD for an average of 14 years. 1/3 of them had it for more than 20 years. So this is people who have been trying things for years and years and years, and they have not been able to get rid of it. And now, just with our therapy alone, 30%.
What separates your therapy from regular therapy?
Well, I think it's the focused. I don't know specifically because I'm not on the therapist training team. So this is kind of interesting.
Also, one more quick question. Is there like a team of therapists, or
It's
is it
two.
2 therapists?
One male, one female.
Okay.
And yeah, so our nonprofit actually owns a for-profit company.
Okay.
And that's where we will be selling our MDMA to clinics in the future. And so usually, but it's a benefit corporation. So in a business, if you have a for-profit business, your stakeholders, you have to produce the most profits. So that's a lot of the problem that we're seeing, like with the environmental problems and everything, because people will cut corners, and because their teammates could sue them if they're not producing the most profits.
Yeah. Gotcha.
With a for-profit public benefit corporation, you can choose to invest money into the community. You can choose the more expensive way that doesn't deprive the earth or whatever the situation is. So our nonprofit owns that. And that's where our therapist training program is housed. That's where our clinical research is housed. MAPS is education and raising money. My bosses raised, and the team, over $110 million so far.
Damn.
And we're in the middle of we just started it, another 150 million pushed.
So how many of those millions do you get?
None.
Or us as a team.
It's not enough money. We don't have any. Everybody's like, "Oh, you made 30 million." You know, we did a capstone 30 million push last year, and everybody's like, "Oh, you have all this money." It's like, we really don't though, because it's so expensive, and we have all these sites. So we're doing Canada, U.S., Israel right now. That's our phase 3. We're doing those 3 places. We have MAPS Europe. We're MAPS Deutschland in Germany. We have the Armenian government reaching out. We have people from all over the world wanting to get this treatment.
So do you guys are you setting up your program to train other facilities to do this on their own?
Yeah, we are training. We have a therapist training program.
Okay.
And our goal, I can't remember, I'll have to look at the slide. We just did this BCG, Boston Consulting Group report. I want to say it's 10,000 therapists, but I could be getting the numbers mixed up because...
So people could use your program at their facility.
They had to get certified, right. And then it'll be, it's going to be all clinical use. So you're not going to get a prescription to take MDMA home and do it. In the future,
you do it at the clinic.
You do it at the clinic. It's all supervised. But my boss is very much.
That's the best way to do it, anyways.
Yeah.
That's how all antidepressants and all that shit should be. We've talked about that before.
I've been on antidepressants for 10 years.
They just fucking write you a prescription and send you on your way, and people don't have any idea how powerful the shit is or what they're doing with it. And they just.
Just prescribe it. So
kind of like you said, if you take something and then you don't feel nothing, you just take more, and then you just take more, and then you take more, and then when you're on your own, you might drink a little alcohol or do something else, and now you're mixing all these
like
powerful
you said.
drugs.
Oh, take a dab.
I was with one of my clients the other day, and they were telling me a story about they came over to Medford. And they had just coming over here to mess around or whatever, go to the movies, whatever shit. And then on the way back, while they was here in Medford, her friend kept telling her that she was feeling dizzy, lightheaded, whatever. And she's like, whatever, it's hot over here, whatever, you're probably hungry, whatever the case may be. So then on the way back home, she said she was feeling the same way and she was feeling dizzy and nauseous, whatever. She said as they were driving back, she just kept telling her this. And then she said she looked over at her and she said that her face or something, I can't remember, but her mouth or something was starting to droop down.
Oh, shit.
And then she said a couple minutes later or whatever, she was like, I really don't feel good, whatever. And she said she looked back at her and she was saying this, and like she had a stroke or whatever, and one whole side of her face was like paralyzed. And she said it was when they got to Klamath, where they took her to the hospital. And supposedly this is what she tells me. I don't really know what happened, but she said she was on some antidepressants, and it built up in her system or whatever, and gave her a stroke or whatever. And then she was saying that the doctors were saying that it happens quite often to people.
Yeah,
From the buildup of the antidepressants, whatever, building up in your system.
The buildup, you start mixing it with other shit, it's super dangerous.
And I'm like, shit, I've been on this shit for 10 years. I don't have no stroke.
My dad had a really fucked up cocktail in his system when he committed suicide. Yeah. Mike had a really fucked up cocktail in his system when he overdosed.
I want to get off them, but I don't know what to do.
Well, if it's...
I don't know
it's
what
a
to
long
do.
process. You have to taper.
If it works for you and you know what you're doing and you're doing it responsibly, it's a different story. A lot of other people can't do that. I mean, they just take whatever until they start feeling better, and then...
I feel fucked up when I stop taking... Like, say if I miss a day, I start having brain shocks.
In my personal opinion, and you guys get mad at me for this if you want, I think that's how they are built. They are built to keep you on them.
I think so too. I believe that.
But I
don't know how to get off it now.
Pharmaceutical world's a fucking billion dollar industry. They are in this to make money.
Exactly.
They are in this to keep you on that shit for as long as possible.
So that's kind of like with us, if we weren't a nonprofit, this would not be a good model, because if you're only taking this drug 3 times and then you don't have PTSD, so I didn't get to the most important part.
They don't need you as a customer anymore, right?
They can't make money off you. Yeah. But so the most important part is when you had the drug, when you did the therapy thing and you had the drug, at the 3.5 month follow-up, 2.5 month follow-up after the 3.5 month program, you 67% no longer qualified for PTSD. So that's like off the charts. We don't have anything like that. And it's going to change the world when we're able to get this out to people. The problem is the cost, the therapy cost for all those hours.
It's a 6-month program.
It's 3.5 months.
3.5 month program.
And then they do the 2.5 month or 2.5 month follow up.
What is that?
That's just to see where people are.
And that's like a week.
So it's the 2 month follow up. So it's a 3.5 month program. And then it's a 2 month follow up, and then we do a 12 month follow up. But obviously we can't do that yet because we haven't. But in our phase 2, so check this out. In our phase 2, our placebo, our therapy alone, that was at 23%. Our 2 month follow up was at 56%, and then our 1 year follow up was at 68%. But now we're already at 67% at the 2 month follow up. So after a year, because what happens is once people learn that they don't have to suppress this trauma and hold on to it, they can process it and they can get it out.
And so you're in therapy how long per day?
I don't know. I think the sessions are like an hour or 2, but the drug sessions.
How many times a week?
Well, it's 12 times over 3.5 months.
Okay.
But the drug sessions are 8.
That ain't bad at all, really, if you think about it.
The drug sessions are 8 hours, and you stay the night there.
Okay.
But I mean.
How many of those do you do?
3.
And you said you do therapy during that time?
Yeah, the therapists are there, so I actually have...
But you have the choice to talk to them or not.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, it'd be kind of weird sitting with therapists for 8 hours.
So I actually have some footage. Well, you're in...
I'll be drawing on their face with a marker. Like, here you go.
You have a bed, you're cozy, when our veteran liaison, he went through our protocol, he attempted suicide 5 times.
I want to fucking try this. I am super interested in trying this, and how do I do it?
So we unfortunately don't have any.
I'll go to UK or.
Yeah, well, our trials are here, U.S., Canada, and Israel. We unfortunately do not have any in Oregon. If you're interested, you can go to clinicaltrials.gov.
We'll put the link up.
And
Simon.
Search MDMA PTSD.
Simon.
And then also, if you want to just go to mdmaptsd.org, that's our site. So the clinical trials are very small, and we're enrolling right now for our second phase 3.
I'm going to go make a phone call right back.
Sign up right now.
Yeah.
But we are going to have some expanded access sites. We were approved for that, and there will be one
That's awesome.
in the area.
It's really awesome you guys are doing that. I fucking think it's huge. Tell us a little bit about your boss.
Oh, the man.
The man.
The myth.
The legend.
That's it.
He truly, his name is Rick Joblin. He has
Hello, Rick Joblin.
he has a PhD in public policy from Harvard. So this man is incredible. So he was raised by his parents, who are Holocaust survivors, or his grandparents were. And he his parents were always encouraging him to study his own life path and see what he wanted to be. His dad was groomed from when he was young to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. And while he felt that was a good experience for him and a good life path for him, he wanted his children to have the opportunity to be whatever they wanted. And so Rick is exploring these different things, and he goes to college at Newcastle, and he takes LSD, and he starts getting into drugs, and he had all these, the drug war, the propaganda. Yeah. And he had actually his parents sent him to Russia. He was studying Russian in high school, and he went to Russia, and it was like in the middle of the war, and they sent him with these prayer books, which were illegal. Yeah. And so he's like, my parents sent me on this underground mission with these prayer books to take to the synagogue. And so they made all this money. They sold all of their American stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they get these rubles, and it's money you can't spend outside of Russia. And so they were giving it to them, and they were giving him all this stuff. But one of the people he met gave him a book that he really loved. And after he read it, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, the guy who wrote that was on LSD." Like,
this is Aleister Crowley.
And he's like, "No way, LSD. You can't perform on LSD, and there's nothing good comes of it. It's all this horrible thing," because that's what he'd been taught. And it was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was Ken Kesey.
Oh damn!
Shit.
And so then it kind of broke him open, and then so later he ends up trying it, and he's having all these challenging experiences. He doesn't know how to process them. He says he was emotionally constipated. He's emotionally underdeveloped, intellectually overdeveloped. He didn't know how to process what was happening.
I love that.
And so he actually went to his therapist at the school. And instead of the therapist, shunning him or turning him away or turning him in, was like, "Oh, well, check this out. I actually have this manuscript of LSD therapy, Realms of the Hidden Unconscious by Stan Grof, who was studying LSD at Hopkins. Mm-hmm. And he had studied it in the Czech Republic, but it had been recently shut down. And the book didn't get published until 1974. But this was in 1972. And so Rick read it. It completely changed his life. He was like, "I want to be a psychedelic therapist." And he wrote snail mail, to Stan. And Stan returned his letter. Nice. And he became his mentor.
That's cool.
And they're still awesome friends to this day. And so Rick goes to his parents and he says, "I want to study psychedelics. I'm going to drop out of college. I want you guys to pay for it." And they were like, "Okay, well, we're going to support you because we think you're making a horrible decision. But if we fight you on it and you decide later that it was a bad idea, you're going to dig your heels in and stick with it just to prove us wrong. Whereas if we support you and you realize it's a bad idea, you can easily back out of it, no pressure." Mm-hmm. So just awesome parents. And so he's just doing all these drugs, and he thought more is better.
Like, yes!
And he's like just really going for it.
This is for research, I promise.
Yeah, no shit.
But he wasn't doing any of the integration. And it didn't work, he kind of just sort of fizzled out. And
I think I've seen the movie on this. It was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They actually are making a movie about him. It won't be released until after our trials. But yeah, it's called Prescription X. I think prescriptionx.com. You can see a little bit of the tidbits.
That'd be cool.
He's awesome. So anyway, he did construction for 10 years, and then he decided that he wanted to go back to school, and he's getting into stuff, and then he wanted to become a psychedelic therapist, but it had been outlawed, it had been made illegal.
Right.
And so he decided the way that he'd have to do it is to change the rules, change the laws. And so he went to Harvard and he got a PhD in public policy.
That's awesome.
And he's been working his butt off. The man is a machine. He's 67 years old. I'm his assistant. I work with him every day. I do all of his appointments. I build all of his presentations. He travels all the time around the world.
He's been on Rogan
3 times. He was just on Rogan recently. That was
Which
his
is
3rd
pretty
time.
cool.
I got a Rogan tattoo.
Don't you, buddy?
I do.
Oh, and an important thing that I need to clarify is, although we're getting this approved for clinical setting, and it is really good to have clinical settings, we're also pushing for drug policy reform because he truly believes that people should have the freedom to experiment with their own consciousness. And so ultimately we would like to see, he specifically would like to see legalization of all drugs with regulation. So you're not going to be able to get unadulterated things. You can get pure things. You would have a license or something of the sort. But he does believe in liberty, and we're the only group, that the nonprofit pharmaceutical company that's pushing for drug policy reform. And that's a big part of what we do. And that's another reason why they really encourage me to do this.
I think with all that, there would have to be like a huge fucking revamp on education
campaign,
for
100.
everything.
Yeah.
Like,
so we're actually doing, this is super cool. So we have a thing called the Zindo Project. It's like a little sister org that we have. And we go to like Burning Man, Utopia, Lightning in a Bottle. We set up this big like yurt tent thing, and we have like bean bags and pillows and all these, you know, comfortable snuggly blankets. And if people are having
I can just see Jeff over there in his little bunny slippers and shit. Fucking yeah.
I can't do drugs. 'Cause
So-
I don't know how to stop doing drugs.
But so they
No, I can. You know, I'm not talking about doing drugs. I'm just talking about dressing like that.
That's what the fire out.
Just in a cozy little fire, it's making s'mores.
So they have this program called the Pure Psychedelic Training Program. I went through. It's really great.
Yeah.
It's open to the public, and we're actually going to be doing online offerings now. But so yeah, it's like if you're having I'm going to a festival, I'm going to do drugs and have the greatest time ever, and then this trauma comes up, you don't know how to deal with it. Your friends are like, I don't know how to deal with this either.
Yeah.
So you go to medical checks you out, and instead of sending you to the cops or sending you wherever, you go to Zindo, and they have peer support specialists that are trained. They sit with you and just let you, and it's like sitting, not guiding.
That's
is one of the
interesting.
principles.
Yeah.
So now, this is the best part, we are actually doing a pilot program with the Denver police.
Wow.
Where we are training
That's a good idea.
the police, because it's, decrimmed or
Yeah.
legalized in Denver now. And so we're going to start there, and then if it works out, we're going to train all the first responders.
I think that actually is going to save a lot of lives.
Yeah, definitely.
Because police don't know how to handle people
Much.
in that
They
state.
don't know how to handle much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So their shit escalates quick. So with the right training, I think that would be huge.
Yeah, yes. Education is a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that education, like, you guys remember a DARE program in school?
I was gonna bring this up.
Were you?
That was like the war on drugs, and you had DARE,
Yeah.
and they had all these cops come into your fucking school, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Do your parents do drugs, kids?"
Dude, got
turn
me
them
in
in.
trouble.
I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, yeah, I'm gonna go home and get my fucking ass beat. We're
Yeah.
telling you my parents had a beer last night or smoked some weed or something. I'm gonna get fucked up for that shit. Like, they already fucking beat me.
Yeah,
They're
same.
really gonna fucking beat me for this shit.
I didn't
like,
tell.
ain't no way I'm saying that shit.
My dad always told me, both my dads been to prison, my stepdad and my
Yeah.
real dad, and nobody likes a teller.
Yeah.
You don't be saying
No
shit
snitch.
to anybody. But, they gave us all the pictures and everything, and I'm looking at it, and I go home, I tell my mom, like, hey, they showed us it. She's like, yeah, you don't be fucking saying
Yeah, as they come in these fucking Camaros and shit, and they're like, check us out. This used to be a drug dealer's car, but now it's
that
ours.
was the thing, though. DARE was like more of a scare you straight, fucking
Yeah.
don't do it or don't ever do it
The war on drugs is...
program
War on us.
instead
Yeah.
of an educational thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's a huge fucking difference there.
The
Yeah.
war on drugs is,
And my
is
parents
something
were
that
the
never
same.
worked.
Well, they tell you, everything's bad, and then when you actually, like, if you smoke weed and you realize, oh, it's not that bad, then you start to question everything they said, whereas if they would have been honest from the get, you would have known.
Yeah, because it's a scare tactic. It's not an educational fucking thing. You know what I mean? They're teaching you that all drugs are bad, and in a sense they can be if they're misused and abused and shit like that, but
they can have medical uses and they can be beneficial. I mean, these trials are showing that, and Hopkins
just like
is doing that.
antidepressants.
What does DARE stand for?
Drug abuse resistance education. Drug abuse resistance education.
Yeah.
Fuck those guys.
SSDP.
What are you shaking your head about, Trill?
Dare.
You remember DARE?
I dare you, yeah.
I almost bought a DARE shirt the other day, actually. Just because it was like some old school shit, you know?
Yeah, remember the
Hey, we should make some
car
mask
that
off
used to bring
shirts
around?
that look like that.
Yeah.
Like the DARE.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, with the tiger. Yeah.
Tiger King?
We'll make the bumper sticker.
No, the Dare
The Jeff
Tiger.
King. Oh shit! I was Dare Tiger.
You
That
remember
was their mascot?
Yeah.
I
It was a
didn't know that.
lion. It was a lion. It had a mane. I remember.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
You know what? I think I have a lot of childhood trauma because I don't remember none of my fucking
You
childhood.
just shut it down.
Shut it.
I think so.
You need to go through this program.
I need to do something. What I need to do is quit taking these pills that I take.
But if they're working,
I think they are working, but I don't like to take a pill every fucking day.
yeah. But I mean,
Because I forget a lot. Because I'll be busy at work and I'll be fucking grinding, and then I'll be like, "Cool, I forgot to take my pill," and I'll just take it in the morning or whatever, and then I forget again, and then all of a sudden I'm having these brain shocks. I'm like, "Fuck!"
Yep.
Now I gotta take this pill, and I'm like in the middle of a fucking tattoo, and I'm like, "Sorry, you're getting a fucked up tattoo." No, but for real.
real quick, just got to plug SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They actually made a program called Just Say No. So their slogan was Just Say No, N-O. Theirs is Just Say No, K-N-O-W, where they actually go
Just
through
No.
all of the different drugs.
It's
And
brilliant. Brilliant. Something else that you're involved in that I really respect and I want to learn a lot more about is this prison program. Tell us about that.
yeah, I love it. I'm really passionate about it. Obviously, I told you both my dads have been to prison, both my brothers have been to prison, my mom's been locked up a few times. And I always thought that's just kind of where I would go because that's sort of the path that's been laid. I didn't want to, but
I think we
kind
could
of
all kind
expected
of
it.
touch on that subject.
Oh, well, I thought getting in trouble my whole life, I thought like prison was the ultimate end of the road. Like that's it. I'm done. If I ever go to
I
prison,
kind of looked at
I'm
it like
done.
that's like college.
Right.
You know, you're doing the street thing. Now you elevate to doing your crime, and then now you're going to prison, and you're gonna come out and fuck
Be
off.
more connected,
Yeah,
and
exactly,
know more people,
exactly.
and have more strengths.
And everybody in my family's been in prison except for I think me. I've never been in prison.
It saved my life. There's programs in there. I mean, a lot of people do look at it like that, and a lot of people come out like that.
Yeah.
And they come out graduated or whatever. But I mean,
Others like you, I have a few friends.
it
Chris Ricketts,
yeah,
dude.
it changed my life, changed his life. I was in there with him.
Lucas Winter. I mean, Jaron Riddle. There's a bunch of really
Fucking
good.
Kentrell Smith.
Thanks to programs similar to the one that you're involved in.
Yeah. So I'm actually involved in 3.
Okay, I didn't know that.
The first one I got involved in was Inside Out Prison Exchange Program, and that was while I was at university.
What's that one about?
It's an international program, and if you are a university student and you have prisons that are offering education inside the institution, they can be linked. So basically, people who are in prison as part of corrections to help correct their behavior, to help teach them so they can reintegrate into society, they offer education. And they can actually get a degree from the University of Oregon.
Awesome.
It takes a really long time, but it is possible. And so,
well, in prison, that's all you have is fucking time.
Yes.
And it's great. It's great that they offer stuff like that in there, and a lot of people don't take advantage of that shit while they're in there. They just sit around and fucking do nothing and try and hustle or whatever. But there are programs in there, and people go to school in there.
Right.
People fucking get degrees in there. They go through programs like you're talking about, and it changes lives. It really does.
100%. So the one I went in was I got screened out twice, and I think it was very competitive to get in anyway, because they can only accept 13 students per class from the outside and 13 from the inside. But I was thinking, I know at one, my brother was actually locked up at that prison, so I think they were like, we ain't gonna let this chick in here. But I finally got in, and I took the class, and it was amazing. Most of the people I was in there with were juvenile offenders who had been in for more than 20 years. Majority of them were murderers. We weren't allowed to say our last names or like talk about crimes or anything, but I, after the fact, found out about some of the situations. But these, when you remove people's past and you remove their identity in a sense, you can really connect with people in a way that you never thought you would be able to. And so it was life-changing.
You also give them the confidence that they're not
monsters.
They're not stuck to that person. Like, they can change.
Yes. Yeah. So many of the guys in there have been so dehumanized and so,
Absolutely.
They just feel like they really, when
a lot of them are fucking scared to even get out. Like, they don't want to get out and live a normal life because they don't think that they can.
Yes.
Like, they don't think they have the resources or the
I feel like a lot of people in prison, even if they do go through programs and shit, once they get out here and gotta start living a life of their own, that it's hard for them because they get deterred from
they don't have the resources to continue.
Especially if you've been in prison for a long time, and then you get out, and then you're like, okay,
you have to feed yourself. You have to pay for rent. You have to figure out how to go to work. You have to get to work. If you got fines, you can't get a license. It's hard.
It's very hard.
So I did that. And then after I graduated from that, I continued to volunteer with the University of Oregon Prison Education Program. So I went into several different facilities, do communications workshops, book readings, that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's my passion. I love it so much because I can see the difference that it makes. Yeah. And like, I would take in the ACE score, so adverse childhood experiences. People aren't familiar with that, definitely look it up. But it's a series of 10 traumas that if you've had before the age of 18, then you are likely to have a health risk. And there's all these implications. It can be linked to a higher likelihood of violence, incarceration, addiction, etc. And that was primarily with white people, middle class, that they did that study. So obviously there are other traumas that aren't in that ACE score, but that's kind of just like a basic set that you can look at. And It was eye-opening. When I first got diagnosed with PTSD and I was asked those questions and I said yes to almost every single one of them, I didn't think that I really had trauma because I always knew somebody that had it worse than me. Yeah. Always. But then when you start looking at it, it's like, oh yeah. And really there are people who had all their needs met in terms of security, financial, their parents were well off, they had a good home environment, their parents weren't addicted to drugs or alcohol, but they weren't there. So you didn't get that attunement with another person, you didn't get that connection, and that's traumatic.
We're dealing with that right now with my daughter.
All human.
And it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to be kind of put on that platform, like, there's just so many different types of trauma, like you're saying. Yeah. Like, it's not all drugs and alcohol. No. It's not all neglect, physical abuse. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, this fucking list goes on. And I've been trying to learn more about, like, the impacts of childhood trauma and, like, trying to step in before. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, when you see the signs, like, bam, get in there and fucking try and change something immediately before, because it snowballs so fast. Yeah. It's fucking scary.
And you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, by the time, it's too late.
Yep. It's too late, the damage is done, and it's like a whole nother monster too.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is, so like, I'll run through this super quick and then I'll get to what I'm going to say about the Divine Spark. But so I did those classes, but then after COVID, we can't go into the prisons right now. Yeah. And so that's on hold. And then also there is a Native American led group called Red Lodge Transition Services in Portland. Super amazing. Trish Jordan runs it. She is awesome. And she does cultural programming, I think in 11 prisons here in Oregon. If you go to their page, you can watch a little OPB special on them. Absolutely wonderful. I love her. I've been invited by her to come and help, go through some of these trauma, emotional regulation, coping type of things. Yeah, donate to her if you can. She's very small group, but she makes a huge difference. Yeah. And especially in Native communities, very important.
That's awesome.
And then lastly, the Enneagram Prison Project. So that's what I'm in right now, and that's kind of where I was going with this. So the Enneagram is a personality tool, sort of like Myers-Briggs or, that kind of thing. And you learn about you take the test and you kind of see which ones you score higher in, and then you look into them and you decide which one is more dominant for you. So the way it is kind of described is when everybody is born, they have this purity, this essence, this natural innocence to them. And throughout your life, a series of events happens that causes you to form kind of like a tar exterior, your shell. And if you have more trauma, that shell may be very thick and dark. And if you haven't had a lot, it could be, more translucent. But the way that your personality develops is through these like one of 9 main categories. And everybody has all of the 9, but one's more dominant.
Right.
And we go through and talk about how that looks. And it's in prison, so it started in prisons. Susan Olasek, you can go to EPP or EnneagramPrisonProject.com, I think it is. It's also known as EPP. But she was, when she was young, her mother took her life, and she heard her father scream, and she went down there and saw her mother, and she blamed herself, as most kids would, and she went through life really, with that burden. And then she had 3 kids of her own, and she was like, you know what, I need to take a parenting class. I need to figure out what I can do because I don't want to fuck my kids up. And she learned about the Enneagram, and then she ended up bringing it into prisons. And it is so transformative. It's mainly been in higher levels, like at Harvard, Stanford. And she's like, this needs to be for everyone. I'm bringing it to the masses. And then after COVID, she's turned it outward facing because she couldn't go into the prisons. And that's how I got involved. One of the guides reached out to my boss, and he's like, my EA is super interested in helping those affected by the carceral system. So I started doing that. And so in the prisons, they teach, or now in the public now also, they teach you that you have this innocence, you have this purity, all these situations happen, you form this crust or whatever, and then you got to figure out how to kind of break through that and get back to your true self. And so we do this activity where you draw like a picture of your younger self or your true essence or whatever. I drew a picture of just like a little flame with a little heart around it, like radiating out. And then
they're like, she's fucked up.
And then they go through and they talk about a series of things that may or may not have happened to you. Maybe your parents were fighting all the time, and so you have your paper and you can put a crumple in it. And maybe somebody's coming in your bedroom at night and offending you, violating you. You put a crumple in it. Maybe your dad's beating your ass. Maybe he's beating your mom's ass. Maybe your mom's beating your dad's ass. Any number of things. And so, I kind of zoned out because they go through all these different things. And I'm just like, by the time I got done, I had this fucking pea-sized thing.
This was like
it was so small.
Like,
and, it was a small piece of paper to start with, but it was like seriously tiny. And then I kind of just like dissociated, I just zoned out as she's saying this because I didn't want to, when she would say it would make me think of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to go there. But then, I got pulled back and they were like, okay, now flatten out your paper.
Yeah.
And it's like, despite the rip, and mine was all fucking mangled, all the rips in it and shit. But it's despite the rips, despite the wrinkles, despite the tears, it's still there.
Yeah.
You can still connect with that. No matter how many fucked up things you've been through, no matter what has happened to you, you can still reconnect with that divine essence, that purity, that source. And getting the emotional tools, the coping, emotional regulation is a huge thing. Like knowing like you can be responsible for your emotions is harder to do.
Emotions are a motherfucker, especially after you've dumbed them down for so
I'm
many
not very
years.
emotional at all.
I just translate.
Sorry, Dad.
I would translate all of my emotions into rage because that was the only thing
too.
that was
You know what?
acceptable.
I do too, kind of. I guess
I was sad. Instead of crying, I wasn't allowed to cry when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's a pussy thing to do.
Absolutely.
I think our generation was like that. Remember, it was just like, I think we all grew up like that. I mean, you get fucked
You crying?
outside,
In
you
Klamath
crying.
for sure.
Yeah.
Remember, it's like,
Absolutely.
you go in the house crying. You fucking sucked it up out in the streets.
Yeah.
And that's where you were at. We lived out there. So our parents looked at it different. It's like, oh, you're fucking fine, put some dirt on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Go back out.
And now we're fucking 40 years old and we're fucking crying to a song in the middle of the highway and we don't even know why.
Hold on, don't put me in that.
And you lying, motherfucker! I seen you.
I seen it.
It was a sad song.
That always makes me cry, Paul.
No, but I mean, after all the years of like drug use and alcohol use and shit like that, I'm still learning my emotions. I'm still learning how to handle them. I'm still learning like what's what. Not everything's anger. Not everything's just boom, anger. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fear behind that. There's
So much fear.
Fucking, there's just a lot of shit behind all that. And your go-to's anger.
And suppression.
And suppression. And most of the time you never get to process that because you react. You just fucking react. You know what I mean? And it's fucked up. But so getting back in touch with all that, and I think that's another thing that should put back into schools or put into education is teaching people as they get older how to fucking manage all that shit. You know what I mean?
I saw somebody that was saying that in high school, we got economics and we have all these things, but they don't teach you how to deal with emotions and like depression or any of those things like that. So at that age, like at high school age, you're older, so you're starting to understand more things. So like even what your parents are going through, you're understanding it more, but there's really no outlet for you.
There's none. And you're kind of left on your own to figure out what to do, where to go with all that shit. And most of the time you just suppress it.
Or you start using drugs, or you start engaging in unhealthy behaviors that turn into habits that get you a habit.
Hanging out with people that are doing the same thing. And you guys
because they're seeking connection.
Influence each other in a negative way. But yeah, so that program, tell me how you guys help people get back in touch with.
Yeah, so there's a series of.
It sounds simple. And
it does sound simple.
And that's the great thing about it, because really
simplicity is
it's
key.
Not fucking complicated. Like, we complicate this shit, you know what I mean? Because we don't know what to do.
Yeah, but it is work, and so one of the main things is we do the work together, and that cool. We're always doing it. And so it's they're actually accepting applications right now. I think 9 Prisons, 1 Key is the first offering. It's online. It's open to the public right now, and it's donation based. So if you have a financial barrier,
Oregon thing?
No, they are based in California, but they have all over.
Okay.
We're doing Australia, Belgium,
Wow.
like trying to spread into different states. There's nothing, like we don't have a branch in Oregon yet, but obviously I'm here. My homework partner, he lives in Ashland. And so I got Jaron Riddle into it. He's going to be helping build it out, hopefully. So
shout out to Jaron.
Yeah.
Love you, homie. Fucking out there doing big things. Really, really fucking proud of you, dude.
Super.
Really proud of you. So thank you. Keep kicking ass.
Yeah, inspiration for sure. But yeah, so you go through, you learn, you got to go back to the basics. Like you were talking about this Pathfinder program that you were in, and you were like, what the fuck? I feel like I'm in kindergarten. But then when you start looking at it, you're like, oh, I actually do need to relearn this.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what she's talking about is a program they run in prison. I did at EOCI, and it was just so... When I first got into it, it was like just relearning all the basics of simple shit, man. Just how to handle different situations.
I need to do this shit.
And I felt better than the program. I'm like, I'm better than this shit. I don't need this shit, you know. But as we started getting into it more, I was like, wow, I don't really even know myself. I don't even, and it was eye-opening, but it changed my life. I still have my workbook and shit. I look at it every now and again and just kind of relive some of that. Because I'm coming up on 10 years of sobriety, and over the, thank you, the course of the fucking grind and the hustle and just tunnel vision, I've been on a mission. I've lost the simplicity of sobriety. You know what I mean? I've lost just the basic gratitude of it all. And it turns you bitter to a lot of things, you know what I mean? And
You're addicted to the hustle now, bro.
I'm definitely addicted to the hustle. That's
dude.
like where I get my
That's what I did. I trained
excitement and
my
all
drug
that
addiction
shit.
right into overperforming,
Yes.
overcommitting. Just like, okay, what are we doing? Oh, we're getting a degree. Oh,
I feel like sometimes people like Jeff need to take a step back sometimes and get away from that,
I'm
because
working on it.
because I understand the same thing. Like, I get so busy and caught up, and I just want to keep going, and I don't spend the time with like my family that I should, or I miss out on things because I'm like, no, I just got to keep doing this or whatever, you know what I mean? And I can see like that could affect like my children or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Also, and I'm like,
And that's where I'm at.
I need to
like,
slow
in
the fuck down a
personal
little
life.
bit.
And you recently just started taking a couple little vacations and stuff. Mac, how's that been for you and your family, just taking that downtime? Because I know you're super busy.
I'm still, even when I'm doing that, I'm fully not engaged with like whatever I'm doing. I'm always focused on doing
Kelly
something
says
else.
the same thing about
and
me.
I even though I think I might be on a vacation or a little like getaway or something, I'm really not.
So you're not letting yourself fully.
And I'm not, and I don't know how
Hard.
to.
It's not just.
I don't know how to
you can't
let
just
go
fucking
and-
turn it off.
Yeah.
So overachieving is actually a trauma response.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, called out again. They got my number.
I was like, how does she know?
But
So, yeah.
in this 9P1K, what they teach you, a big part of the freeing ourselves from prisons of our own making, this is kind of like the goal.
Yeah.
Is presence. And if you have trauma that you haven't dealt with, and you have things that you have been keeping yourself so busy so that you don't have to deal with them, then you don't want to be present.
Right.
Because when you start sitting still,
Damn.
and you
No, for real
shots
though.
fired.
That's fucking real shit right there.
It is.
And
Yeah,
I that's exactly
I'm
what I do.
guilty. I'm
Exactly
so
what I
guilty.
do. I don't know how to fucking be
Yeah.
present, and I'm afraid to be present.
Exactly.
It's hard to do it, and it's not. I mean, when the sensations in your body, the awkwardness,
The awkwardness. You need to fucking do something. You need to stay busy.
I can't sit in a room when it's quiet. I can't.
Me neither.
no stimulation.
I gotta have a sound. I gotta have something to where my mind, because I don't know how to be by myself. I don't know how to be. I don't know. I can't. I gotta have something going nonstop.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if I'm
need
sleeping, I gotta hear a fan or something. I gotta have music. Like if I start like hearing silence, I'm like my brain just starts fucking going boop boop boop, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on in here?
Yeah.
I'm like, I just need to
Sounds like we all
divert
have
that somewhere else.
That we all have trauma we need to work through.
So they
Yeah,
make
exactly.
us
We're fucked up.
commit to.
We are.
Yeah, agreed.
Especially me.
Look at you.
On the trail cam. Today I'm McLovin though, so I got a lot of trauma.
They make us commit
I can't believe
to.
you're wearing that shirt right now.
It's a classic.
What's up, gangsters?
Chicka fake ID.
Fogel.
Right?
Oh my god.
Muhammad. But yeah, they make us commit to 60 days of presence practice. So every single class that we do, we get into our group and we say whether we're above the line or below the line, which means basically, are you receptive? Like you were saying, I thought I knew better. I didn't think that would be below the line. If you're eager or willing to learn, you don't necessarily have to be in a good mood, but like, are you receptive to the information?
Yeah.
Can you be present? You could be above the line. And so they do that check-in to see, you can see where you are with yourself. And I started doing it throughout the day. I started getting pissed off about something. I was like, oh, I'm falling below the line. What can I do to bring myself above?
Yeah.
Because you actually do have a choice, and it's not easy. It's hard as hell. I used to be really mad a lot of the time. And I caught an assault charge, and I had to do anger evaluation.
Self-awareness is never easy. Like,
Yeah.
and being the honesty it takes to
Call yourself out on
put
your
yourself
own.
in check.
Yeah.
Like
I just
that.
made a post on Facebook or on our Facebook Mask Off Therapy, and it was about being self-aware.
Hey.
And I asked people if they were self-aware, and I got 4 people who looked at that fucking thing. Motherfuckers.
Because it's hard, bro. That's
yeah,
why.
exactly. So
It's not like
People don't know. Yeah, you're right.
It takes complete honesty.
People are like, wait, well, I'm gonna fucking get the fuck away from this post.
Vulnerability,
all that shit, to actually put yourself in check like that and say,
and
like,
acceptance.
It's easy to put other people in check, but not yourself.
To learn a different way to fucking handle a situation. It's hard.
And we see a lot of people now that are talking about a lot of like situational awareness training and stuff like that. Do you guys look into any of those things like that as far as like helping inmates when they come out? Because different situations are going to make you react differently.
And I have one specific one that I've dealt with on a personal level with people out of prison. Because I hire people out of prison and try and get them on their feet.
Good job.
And that's money. So do you guys like teach budgeting or anything like that throughout the...
I don't think we have any financial or like life skills types of stuff. We're mainly focusing on personality development, like how we develop addiction, emotional regulation, and then how to free yourself. Here's the key. Now you got to do the work, and it's a continuous work. So we go in, we do above the line or below the line, and we always do a grounding session, always. And we have to commit, even on the days that we're not in class, we have to commit to doing it. And if you don't do it, then you don't do it, but really just robbing yourself.
Yeah.
It could be 5 minutes of just breathing.
Okay.
And, you could do a guided meditation on YouTube. You can do them on Spotify. There's different ones that you can do. And then, I like to do it in the morning when I wake up, just feeling what's going on in my body,
Yeah.
I like to do a lot of internal type of stuff where I go, because I heard this thing before, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, where this guy was 8 years old. He's riding on the bus. He has like a 2-hour long bus ride. He lived out in the country in Switzerland. And he's looking at his hand and he's thinking about it, and he like visualizing going into his hand and into his bloodstream and into his cells and into the atoms of the cell and into the space in there. And then how the space in the universe comes back down into the galaxy, into the solar system, into the planet, into the country, back into that bus.
That's wild.
Okay. And so he says, like, the thing that connects everything is this space within us, and this space to the edge of the universe that's constantly expanding. And so I like to go visualize myself going in to my atoms, into that space and just being. And sometimes I'll just try to be there in the darkness and hang out, and it's uncomfortable to do that, especially in the silence, Yeah. But I just kind of see what comes up for me, what's going on. Or sometimes I'll imagine being at one of my favorite places, the birds chirping and the water on my face, the mist coming and rainbow or whatever. And just kind of checking in and taking that time to really be with yourself and be present and focusing on your breath. And that's a huge thing, like the breath work, the breathing.
Yeah.
If you can get yourself to trained, so now when I get mad, instead of like trying to fight or get aggressive or flip the fuck out, I'll try to take some breaths and this doesn't require an emotional reaction. And I've kind of trained myself to think if I give somebody an emotional reaction, then they have control over me.
Yeah.
And that sort of helps,
Do you would you consider yourself like in tune with the universe, like through your meditation style, or through anything that you do, like
I would
energy
say,
manipulation?
What helps you get grounded? So like when you're doing that, what grounds you?
So like, for example, if we were going to do if we were in class right now and we just got there, and we do it every single time we get together, because wherever you came, I usually, right before I get to class, I've been at work, and it is wild at work all the time. Gas. And then I have to come into this other setting where I'm trying to learn how to teach people to reparent themselves, essentially, and accept themselves and love themselves. It's hard to love yourself.
Right.
It's so hard. Like, I had to do a presentation on my number 8, which is the challenger, which is like the fucking asshole of the Enneagram. And I was like saying all the bad things. And they're like, oh, you got to get people to fall in love with the type. I'm like, well, I got to love myself a little more before I can do that. But so if you come in, then we would say like, okay, everybody take some breaths. You can like, wiggle your shoulders out, do a little movement, because people are sitting stiff all day.
Mm-hmm.
So you start feeling loosen up. You can lower your gaze. A lot of the time in prison, people aren't wanting to close their eyes because it's an unsafe environment. So
don't come by me with your eyes closed, boy.
and so if you want to close your eyes, you can't. Obviously, we're on Zoom, so you're in your own space, whatever. And then there's a series of things that you can do. Some people will be like, just notice what's coming up for you. And then like a thought will come in. Don't follow that thought. Just let it go by. Just see it. Oh, I need to take my pill. Oh, that song I heard on the radio that was making me cry earlier. Yeah. Whatever it is, but just let it go.
I thought you really needed to take your pills now. I'm looking for them.
But, or somebody will be like, we take turns too doing it. So everybody gets a chance to see what it feels like and guide. And, somebody will be like, think of something that made you smile today. And think of that feeling. And know that you can have that feeling, like atmosphere, keep it bottled up in a jar, bust it out whenever somebody's acting hard. Like it's so weird when you start to realize you can actually have some emotional regulation, some control over yourself, but it takes responsibility. It takes, I'm at the movie theater, this dude just walked in front of me, kicked my shoe, spilled his popcorn on me. I can stand up and try to fight this dude and ask him why he's fucking scuffing my shoes up and disrespecting me, trying to get me greasy with his popcorn. Or I can be like, oh, maybe this guy didn't see me. Mm-hmm. It was an accident. Hey, are you good? Whatever, But it's that split second, and most of us, I can speak for myself, and I think a lot of people from Klamath have this default of it's on.
Yeah.
We have to fight now because you just tried to punk me, even when they're not,
Oh, my wife tells me that all the time, like, not everybody's out to get you. Like, you need to chill the fuck out. I'm like, that motherfucker. But yeah, it's just like automatic. Like, I don't even think about it.
It's the default.
It's right back to in a negative self-talk or negative fucking
that
bullshit.
Inner critic.
Yeah.
That inner critic yapping in your
why
ear.
is this dude fucking with me?
I just went through this the other day, and I'm still angry about this situation. I got a restraining order on me and everything.
Oh, damn. Took it up a level.
Do tell.
Level up.
Okay, so this is what happened. I was driving down the street, minding my own business, going home.
You know when a story starts off like that.
I was going home. I was like coming from work, going to this was a few months back, going to pick my daughter up to take her to school, and some fucking asshole
across the road.
Yeah, this motherfucker stops in the middle of the goddamn road, and I'm like, what the fuck, So I go around him, and he scoots up just a tiny bit, and he starts yelling at me. So I'm like, what, motherfucker? I'm like, fuck you, dude. So we start yelling back and forth. We're in our cars. And I pull up a little bit, we're yelling back and forth. He jumps out of his car and fucking pops his trunk, goes into his trunk, grabs a fucking axe handle.
What?
So I'm like, oh yeah, really, motherfucker? So I jump out of my car. I'm like, what the fuck you gonna do with that, bitch? You gonna do something to me with the fucking axe handle? So I start walking towards you. Oh, you walking closer, I'm gonna hit you in the head with this thing. I'm like, well, fucking hit me then, motherfucker. I'm like, you ain't gonna stop shit with that fucking axe handle. He's an older dude, And then, I realized that I know this dude, and we had an altercation a long time ago. I beat his ass. I did beat his ass.
Oh, shit.
And, he was beating up a woman in a parking lot. And I was like, I'm not going to go for that shit because I don't like when dudes hit on women or whatever. Because I had some trauma with that when I was little. So I go and I beat his ass, whatever, all this shit happens. So then I was like, oh yeah, motherfucker, I remember you. I beat your ass a long time ago. He's like, oh, you beat my ass? Hey, nobody beat my ass. And then I'm like, yeah, in that parking lot when you're beating up what's her name and this and that. And he's like, oh, I've been waiting a long time for you, motherfucker. He tells me. Shit. So I'm like thinking, oh, here he goes. He's gonna come at me with this fucking axe handle, So I'm like, you hit me with that fucking thing, I'm gonna fucking just shoot your ass. Be done with it. So then, this fucking lady comes and she's talking to him and he's like, I'm gonna hit this guy in the head. So I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm like, I gotta take my daughter to school. I get in my car and I leave. I go pick my daughter up, and as I'm at my fucking house, I didn't know this dude lived close by me. He's over in the bushes fucking staring at me and
my
shit.
God.
My neighbor's fucking out there, and he's like something about me shooting him. He's like, I'll fucking shoot him for you, bro, or something like that. I'm like, nah, dude, this dude ain't worth it or whatever. I'm like, take my daughter to school. I come back, the cops are there. I'm like, oh fuck, this guy called the cops on me. So I pull over and go talk to the cops, because why not? They're gonna come talk to me anyways.
Right.
Get it over with. They're like, oh, he said he was going to shoot you, this and that, take my side of the story, whatever. I'm like, yeah, you had an axe handle. He's like, yeah, I did have the axe handle, blah, blah, blah. He said he was going to shoot me. I'm like, whatever. It wasn't nothing. A little bit of road rage. I'm like, I'm good. So they search my car, whatever. They run my name. They're like, okay, you can go home. Whatever. If we have any more questions, we'll come talk to you. Fucking a couple days later, I'm at work. Cop comes in laughing. He's like, you ever had one of these? And I'm like, no. What do you got for me? He's like, oh, this is restraining order. Don't fart in the wind the wrong way. And he laughs and walks out. I'm like, motherfucker.
Gotcha.
So
That'll
did you try
teach
to
you.
fart in the wind the wrong way?
You know what? I have been ever since.
I can tell
No,
you.
actually, I went to court and I tried to fight it. Because I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, this dude did all this and now whatever. So I go to court and then we're going back and forth. And then the dude starts telling me I'm racist
Oh god.
and against black people.
Yeah, you
and I'm
are.
like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, my kids are fucking black. Control's like Dominican or whatever he is.
He's
and-
a trail mix. He's
Yeah, and I'm like, what? And he started saying all this shit that ain't even true, and I just want to be like, what the fuck? And that shit pissed me off so fucking bad. I'm like in the courtroom, literally like shaking, like I just
You
want to
gotta
reach
let
over
that shit go,
and
man.
punch this dude in the fucking face.
So much wasted energy.
It is.
So much wasted
And
energy.
If you
it's
would have
wrong,
had
and I'm so
emotional
angry about it.
if you would have had emotional regulation at play when he started with that bullshit, you could be like, okay, this guy clearly has got something going on.
What happened is I
could
should
let
have
him
just went around him
affect
and
it.
just kept going and
Exactly.
went home.
Yep.
And now I got a restraining order on me because this guy jumped out of his car, initiated everything.
And you wasted all that time
And-
dicking around
and
with
I
that
did.
dude.
And energy, and now the money
So
and the
much
time.
energy.
and
No
the
money
court.
was involved.
Okay, good.
Your
They don't
time's
even-
money, motherfucker. What are you
Unless,
talking about?
unless you see him at the store and he tries to claim you.
That's
you
what I
know.
was like. I'm like, this dude lives like not even 100 yards from me. I'm like,
Let it go. Let it go.
I don't think about
well,
Snoop.
I was gonna say I let it go, but obviously I haven't.
I know, it's
Maybe
still
me
got
talking
you
about it
upset.
right here in front of everybody will make me
It's good.
let it go.
Hey, you see
not
the
worth
real,
it.
you see
It's-
the
it's
realness of
definitely
our
not.
show. I mean, we all have stuff that we're working through. So I mean, this shows you the raw, uncut, unfiltered. This is life.
More than anything, though, it pisses me off that he lied about shit.
You can't control what he comes out of his
Exactly.
I
mouth.
can't, but it still bothers me.
You know.
You guys know how it is.
There are
right?
certain things, yeah. Disrespect is like that for me. I can't. That's like it'll get me,
Yeah.
and I'll get And so
Being lied to.
yes,
It's
being
fucking
lied to, being stolen from. Like there are
Being
certain
lied to me in the
things.
courtroom when I know I can't do anything about it, and then them being granted, like, here you go. That shit pissed me off more than anything.
It's a
I'm
violation.
I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck this, and now I'm still pissed off about it. But
But
there's nothing I can do about it now, like at all. So it is what it is. I get it off my chest. There.
it's good.
Oh shit.
Well,
You
good
wanna,
for you sharing, buddy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
Thank
so
you.
good. I'm glad you're not.
Now I'm gonna go home and cry fucking when I'm
Just,
listening to the radio.
I cry in the shower. Save time.
Oh, I love it. When I'm in the showers, when I actually like to look at my hand and
Going to
I
space.
love you. Yeah.
Whoa, whoa. A little bit too much information.
So that's how you ground yourself.
Yeah, I'm grounded now.
I'm grounded now. I do a little meditation like Ace Ventura.
Right? The shower's my safe spot, man. I love being in the shower.
Increase my heart rate, then decrease my heart
Yeah.
rate.
You want to plug any of your websites and your affiliations?
I think I have. So yeah, Maps, of course, maps.org. Enneagram Prison Project. I think it's enneagramprisonproject.com, but it might be .org. I'll have to get the link. ssdp.org, Red Lodge Transition Services. I can't remember if it's redlodge.org. UO Prison Education Program is really good.
Nice. Well, thank you for being on the show.
It was
I think
nice
that
having you.
I definitely fucking learned a lot and
Yes.
very interested in a lot of the programs that you're involved with. Super proud of you and how far you came and your just your will to want to help people is really inspiring.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. Everybody check out our YouTube channel. The show is brought to you by Dope Cigar,
Trail Mix Beats,
Next Level Clothing,
Next Level Clothing,
Live Canvas Tattoo. You guys be sure to check us all out.
Toshka.
Everybody in Facebook
Contrarial.
group. Love you guys. Appreciate it.
Nice work, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Your
having
body
me.
of work is great. We look forward to watching you do some more things and seeing how some of these things unfold and stuff like that. So
Sure.
I definitely think we should have you back once Oregon gets the clinical trials and stuff like that. It'd be cool to kind of see what's going on.
Check
after that
in.
once.
Yeah, we're hoping 2024 for our clinical use for MDMA.
Nice.
Fuck, I wanna
By
do it. I wanna do it
2024, we
myself.
should have this podcast on the moon. Might be pretty dope.
No.
Yeah, we'll be when we open the expanded access sites, it'll be on there. You can sign up for our newsletter and stuff. We don't spam people. We send out like a few things.
Dope.
But yeah.
Yeah, definitely something to check out. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.